Hi, Community Connections now. It's so awesome to be with all of you tonight. I've been taking off a few weeks here and there, working on some hardcore projects that I'm so excited to share with you all. But most of all, I'm so pumped to have Nick Stevens on with us tonight. Nick is the program director of a wonderful new 501c3 organization called the Creative Institute of Arkansas. And I'm actually going to let him tell you more about their mission and more about himself. And Nick and I went to the Clinton School together, and I'm super passionate about the work that you're doing now, Nick. So I'm going to let you hop on in and just tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my name's Nick. I'm a Central Arkansas native. I'm from Jacksonville, went to college at UCA, and then to the Clinton School in Little Rock. The Creative Institute is Arkansas's first gap year program.
Yay.
So we're super excited to bring this to Arkansas. It's a new experience for a lot of kids and parents, but it's a really valuable one. So our program is specifically focused. Our mission is to help young creatives find careers that they love. So our executive director has a background with creative and digital marketing. And that's kind of the flair we bring to it. So we're teaching graphic design, video, photo, writing, and exposing students to all kinds of other careers. So that's kind of my short spiel.
I love it. Yeah. And this is the first program of its kind in the state. Isn't that right?
As far as we know,
Yeah.
I mean, someone may come out of the woodwork and say, no, we've been gapping in Jonesboro for years. But as far as we know, we're claiming it and we're proud of it.
It's awesome. Yeah, you need to check out their website, which we'll provide everybody. But I had the chance to really dig into it. Nick had me on one of his interviews, and it's an incredible program. And for parents who want to encourage a gap year, have a child that wants to do a gap year, I think this is the perfect program because it provides structure, and you can find out more about that through Nick and the website. But what I want to talk about as well, Nick, is, Community Connections was started literally with like a glass of wine at the onset of COVID. And you know me well, and I think you're kind of similar to me. I think we're both extroverts. And I was like, I can't sit like in my house for months on end. I'm going to lose my mind. So I started Community Connections, and, that was just such a fun experience, and the group kept growing, and we had some amazing interactions. And now we've rebranded with an even deeper mission, which is to help others positively pivot through networking and leadership, and, in order to define your passion. So let's talk about your passion, Nick. What is that for you? Tell us about that.
Honestly, I think my passion is connected to your origin story. So this all started over a glass of wine. I think some of the most fun and exciting things in my life have started over a cup of coffee or a glass of something. And so that's kind of my passion area. Is there's two things I like to say about myself. Is one, I'm eternally moved by everything. And number two, I really love making other people's visions and passions come to life. So it does sound a lot like what you're doing.
I thought you and I have always hit it off, probably.
Yeah. Yes, awesome. Absolutely. So that's kind of my passion area, is just like, I love connecting with people. I love sitting down and hearing what you want to do, and like throwing out ideas and connecting you to other people and that sort of stuff.
I'm always so amazed. I love coffee dates, like you were saying, because it's like so many things that I've done have like just happened from a coffee date, like just going and seeing what someone else is doing. So that's awesome. So I like to talk about at the beginning of these interviews, like, how are you affected by COVID-19, and how did you, and I know you have a young family, how did you positively pivot? What did that look like for you?
So I have one of the very privileged COVID-19 stories, because when COVID hit, it really positively impacted my life. My daughter was about to be born. She was due in August, and we, went on lockdown in March. And so we were really able to slow our lives down. Working from home, there was a lot that was hard about it. Like, it's just not healthy to sit in bed on your laptop every day. Yeah. And so there's things like that, but overall it helped us to slow down, to prepare for her. And there was no way I would have been able to, work from home and be available for little short breaks to help with her or do things. And so I really benefited in being able to be more present at home because of COVID. And it really it allowed me the space during our leave when Reese was born to reflect on some things that had been churning.
Yeah.
And that's around the time that myself and our executive director, Jessica, started talking about, hey, this Creative Institute, it's been brewing for years. We've got all these experiences and everything is ready. Now's the time. And so it helped us launch this thing. It gave us the space to consider and jump.
I love that. That's one of my most favorite answers to that question that I've actually gotten, because you touched on a few things, like a lot of the time the mom, tends to be left at home, and, dad has to go to work, which is, totally acceptable. But that's cool that you got to like be a little more hands-on than maybe what you traditionally have seen in the past with your newborn. So that's great. And then, really finding that silver lining and, doing this new venture. So I love that. That's kind of what happened for me, and that's what I keep saying to people with COVID-19, like, yes, it's been such a struggle, but if you look at the silver lining, we're redefining work life, we're redefining family life, we're redefining our future. And now's the time for free thinkers and creatives to really say, you know what, this didn't work in the past, and now is the opportunity to change things. And so I'm really passionate about really your mindset and to do that, because some people don't realize, I think, the opportunity that there is there. So that's really cool to hear.
And I think it's important for us to continue, for us to go back to our workplaces and advocate, like, we're not going back. Not physically, we're not going back, but just the demands of the American workforce, we should not be going back. At the same time, we should be advocating for the people whose life didn't change and they were just out there and exposed all the time. So there's so much opportunity in this.
There is. There absolutely is. Couldn't have said it better myself. I love that. See, that makes me want to schedule another coffee date. So a fun question I like to ask, which I think in this particular case, you're probably the best person to ask with what you're advocating for and who you're working for. But if you could talk to your younger self today, what advice would you give a younger Nick Stevens?
Okay, so I had to think about this.
It's kind of hard, actually.
It's difficult because it's a vulnerable question. If you answer it honestly, it's vulnerable. And I think my honest response is that I would tell myself to get help. I spent so much time as a kid and as a teenager keeping so much stuff to myself and having this whole internal life that I didn't know how to allow other people into. And I was so afraid of what other people would think of me if I was vulnerable and real. And so if I could go back to myself, and what I see in so many young people, my wife does college ministry. So it's like we see these young students over and over. And now at the Institute, I'm excited to connect with them even more. But it's this vulnerability thing. It is a skill set to expose yourself in a positive way with someone you can trust, and in a way that allows you to really fully see yourself and be yourself and just go into the world in that way. And there's things about us that may need improving, but it's almost impossible to improve it by yourself with no one else beside you. And so that's kind of my thing is young people, get help, ask questions, and practice being vulnerable, but do it safely. I've also seen people get vulnerable in ways that made it I'm never going to be vulnerable ever again.
No, that's such a great answer, and that's why you're I'm on fire for your program, and I know
you're my fan club.
I'm totally in your fan club, and I know when you told me you were leading this, I just you're going to help so many, college, I call them kids because I feel old. They're not kids, but I know you're going to do a great job. And so I love that advice, getting help, vulnerability, being with someone you can trust, which is exactly what you're going to provide. So that's great. So I'm a bookworm, and Well, I'm like a podcast junkie, but I only listen to like two, but like those are the ones I listen to, you know? So like with all your wisdom, Nick, and for those who don't, well, you wouldn't know this. I met Nick at the Clinton School. I've always been drawn to Nick just for his ambition, his leadership, your positive attitude. And now, of course, you leading this initiative. I mean, it really came as no surprise to me. And so I'd love to hear what resources you like to use for inspiration, education, motivation. Like what's your favorite source of inspiration, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. So my go-to right now, especially on the subject of slowing down, making the most of this time where we're isolated, where we're not as like overrun by all these demands. I read a book last year called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. It's a book by John Mark Comer. So this one, I'm a Christian, so this one's like a faith-based, and it has a lot to do with spiritual disciplines, but it's just incredible, the commentary he gives on just our like fast-paced work, busy culture. It's cool to be busy, but we're all overrun by it. And so the book is really, it's diving into that and kind of giving a lot of practical tips and support for, let's slow down. Let's make our lives meaningful. Let's have margin and make it to where we enjoy life instead of, just accomplishing everything until you die.
I love that. I'm going to order that book because I've been working on that too.
It's really good. I have a second one for you too, though.
Keep going.
So that's my book. And then the podcast, I know that you have all kinds of different people that you're working with, but I know you're passionate about mothers. Yes. So let me give you a nice podcast for dads that I've heard many dads find this through their wives. Okay. So, again, it's a faith-based, it's a Christian podcast, but it's called Dad Tired.
I love that.
And the whole thing is about helping men to like be better husbands, be better fathers. And from a faith perspective of, what does the Bible say about this, that kind of stuff. So it's a really good support for a man who wants to grow in that way.
How wonderful. I might make that my husband's alarm clock tomorrow morning. No, he's wonderful. But no, that's great. I mean, it's always important to have a growth mindset and just always be learning, because as soon as you think you're done learning, what you've really done is set a barrier, for yourself. So I love this question. And I've never gotten the same resource twice, from anybody. So, but I love that. I love that you gave us some information about how to help dads, because that's so important, obviously. So that's great. So we've talked about the onset of COVID and like how Community Connections now came to be. And so basically, like the history of Community Connections now is I moved to Alaska. So I lived in Alaska last July through December, and I didn't touch this group. And it's because this group wasn't planned. And I really was like, hey, let's see if it grows at all without me touching it. And it did. And so I came back and, was inspired by that. And now that 2021 is here, I felt like we turned a corner or a milestone. And like, yes, we're still in it, but I think you go one of two directions. And like one is, maybe some type of depression and feeling really low, or I think you kind of go the real opposite way where you like are launching new projects and new initiatives, and maybe you're starting your own business that, you always wanted to do because now's the time. All of that to say, so now that's 2021 for you, Nick, how are you pivoting differently in 2021 versus like the onset of COVID? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So, so my experience has been during the heat of COVID, I'm thinking like last summer, especially, we were maybe hanging out with people outside in lawn chairs, but it was like me and my wife. And so there was so much more time on our hands outside of work to do this reflecting and slowing down and figuring out, like reprioritizing.
Right.
And so I think the new pivot for us for 2021 is life is picking back up. And so we once again have to choose what are the things that we're going to put our time and attention into in a really purposeful way? Because now all the floodgates are open, everybody's getting vaccinated, or they just don't care anymore.
Yeah.
And so, there's all kinds of stuff that's going to start up, from, social gatherings to movies to anything and everything. And so it's a challenge this year, I think, for me to continue to be thoughtful and prioritize, what is my life really going to be about?
Yeah.
And am I going to say yes to everything, or am I going to have a good solid no every now and then so I can say yes to what really matters? So that's my challenge. And I'm already failing. I'm ready to reread my hurry book because I went and started a nonprofit, so it's definitely
I'm doing the same. I mean, I really am going to order that book. Yeah, I know it's tough. Like I love that. I love that mindset, and that is a mindset that I struggle with as well. And when I sit back sometimes and I'm like stressed about a deadline, I'm like, this deadline that I feel like I have to get done today was literally like self-imposed by me.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of like learning to pause and be like, this really can happen tomorrow morning, and like it's going to be okay. So it's cool that you're focusing on a lot of the same principles that I've actually been working on as well, because I agree. We had this huge event in our lives, and there was good and bad, and I don't want some of that good to just disappear. I think that's so important to recognize that and keep your eye on the ball with that. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Great. So as we start to wrap up, I would love to ask you to give a call to action to all of our viewers here. We would love to help you. That's what Community Connections is about. We're here to connect. We're here to market for each other. So just let us know how we can help.
Okay. So for the Creative Institute, we're recruiting students, and we're looking for let me put myself together. We're looking for students who are looking for us. So we want to find these students who either don't know what they're doing next, or they've chosen a next step after high school or after college, and they're just not excited about it. They either we shared about your story before, Starre, of like they got a degree that they don't really want to use for the rest of their life, or they started a degree and they just are not finishing it.
Right.
Or they're about to go to college or just work for a while because they don't really know what the next thing is for them. So we want students who are talented. You've seen their artwork, you've seen their photography, you think they have a lot of talent and skill, but they don't know how to make a living from it. And so we want to teach them how to make a living while doing what they really love. And we'll get them a lot of skills, and then we'll either send them to college or send them into a job. So that's what I want. I want your referrals. Tell a student about me, give them my phone number, have them email me, have their mom call me. That's what I want. That's my call.
The best way to get students to you.
The best way. It's the business number, but it comes to me is 501-232-1902. And I'm sure we can post this after the show.
Yes.
Or you can email me at nick@creativeinstitutear.org. Those are two really easy ways, because you can text or call that number. Super easy.
Nick Stevens. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This is a relationship and a partnership that I really want to keep. I want to hear about your progress. I want to have you on the show, maybe in 6 months, and hear how you're doing, and certainly help in actively recruiting students for you, because this is just so important and amazing what you're doing. So I'm going to go ahead and close out. Nick, do you have any final words at all?
I don't. I'm so excited to be having students do a gap with us. That's it. I can't wait to send you that book too.
Order it tonight. I can't wait. I'm going to have to send you some of my books. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us tonight with Nick Stevens, and that's the Creative Institute of Arkansas. They have a website, they have their social media channels, and then Nick shared his contact information as well. And you know where to find them, and I'll post some information. And then with that, I will be back in 2 weeks with another live interview with Caitlin from Zen Studio Fitness. She's also the founder of Wellness Warriors and She is just such an incredible woman. I cannot wait to have her on here, and I'll share her information as we get closer. But I hope you all have a wonderful week and enjoy the interview. So everyone have a wonderful night. Thank you so much.